The morning sun cast long shadows across the empty schoolyard as Jasmine Williams stood at the bus stop, clutching her backpack straps. Today was her first day at Westfield High, and her stomach was in knots. Being the new kid was never easy, especially in the middle of the semester. Jasmine checked her phone one more time and reread the good luck text from her mom. After her mother got that big promotion, they had packed up their life in Chicago and moved to this small town where everybody seemed to know everybody, except her. The rumble of the approaching yellow bus made Jasmine straighten her shoulders. She took a deep breath, remembering what her grandfather always told her: "First impressions matter, little one. Stand tall." The bus doors swung open with a hiss. The driver, a middle-aged man with tired eyes, barely looked at her as she climbed aboard. Jasmine scanned the seats, noticing how some kids instantly avoided eye contact while others stared a bit too long. She spotted an empty seat near the front and slid into it, placing her backpack on her lap like a shield. What nobody on that bus knew was that behind Jasmine's quiet demeanor and careful movements was a fighter. Not just a fighter, one of the best young Muay Thai competitors in the underground circuit back in Chicago. Since the age of 7, when her grandfather first took her to the gym after a bullying incident, Jasmine had trained religiously. The discipline had become her anchor, the ring her sanctuary. As the bus lurched forward, Jasmine gazed out the window at the unfamiliar streets. Her last tournament had been just 2 weeks ago. Her knuckles still showed faint bruises if you looked closely enough. She had promised her mother that this move would be a fresh start, no more fighting. No more coming home with split lips and bruised ribs that needed explaining to teachers. Just focus on school, her mother had pleaded, and Jasmine had agreed. Fighting had given her confidence and self-discipline, but it had also given her a reputation that followed her everywhere in Chicago. The bus stopped again, and more students piled on. A girl with bright red hair and headphones gave Jasmine a quick once-over before continuing to the back. 2 boys in football jerseys laughed loudly as they passed, not even noticing her. Jasmine relaxed slightly. Maybe being invisible wasn't so bad. Then she noticed how the atmosphere on the bus changed. Students suddenly sat up straighter, conversations hushed, and several kids looked toward the front with a mixture of fear and resignation. The bus had stopped at a large house with a circular driveway. A tall boy with perfectly styled hair and expensive clothes climbed the steps. He moved with the confidence of someone who had never been told no in his life. Behind him were 3 others who carried themselves like an entourage rather than friends. The bus fell silent as the boy strutted down the aisle, his eyes scanning each seat like he owned them all. When his gaze landed on Jasmine, his eyebrows lifted slightly. She could read the question in his face. "Who's this?" Jasmine had seen his type before, the kind of person who measured others by what they could get from them or how easily they could be intimidated. In her old school, she had dealt with bullies by simply showing them what happened when they pushed too far. One demonstration in the schoolyard was usually enough, but her mom's words echoed in her mind: fresh start, not fighting. So instead of meeting his stare with the fighter's glare she had perfected, Jasmine looked down at her phone, pretending to read a message. She could feel him hovering near her seat, sensed his presence the way she sensed opponents in the ring, by the displacement of air, by the energy they gave off. What Jasmine didn't know then was that on bus number 23, seats weren't just seats. There were territories, status symbols, and the front seats belonged to only one person, Trent Wilson, whose father chaired the school board and whose family name was on half the businesses in town. As he stopped beside her seat, casting a shadow over her, Jasmine had no idea that her attempt at a quiet first day was about to become anything but. Her instinct told her to prepare for trouble, but her promise held her back. Little did this boy know that the quiet new girl he was about to confront had taken down opponents twice his size without breaking a sweat. The battle lines were being drawn, and Jasmine hadn't even made it to first period. Trent Wilson stood over Jasmine, his shadow falling across her face. The morning light through the bus windows caught on his expensive watch as he gripped the seat in front of her. "You're in my seat," he said, voice flat but loud enough for everyone to hear. It wasn't a question or even an accusation. It was a statement of fact in his world. Jasmine looked up, meeting his eyes briefly. "I didn't see anyone's name on it." A collective gasp rippled through the bus. Nobody talked to Trent like that, especially not a new kid who didn't know the rules yet. The corner of Trent's mouth twitched. You must be new here. He leaned closer, his cologne overwhelming. So let me explain how things work. Front seats are mine. Always have been, always will be. Jasmine glanced around, noticing how the other students were watching with a mixture of fascination and second-hand embarrassment. The bus driver pretended to adjust his mirrors, clearly wanting no part in this. And where am I supposed to sit? Jasmine asked, trying to keep her voice neutral. Her fingers gripped her backpack tighter, knuckles turning white. Trent's smile didn't reach his eyes. Back of the bus is where you belong. Isn't that where your kind usually sits anyway? The words hung in the air like poison. Jasmine felt heat rise to her face, not from embarrassment but from anger. In Chicago, those words would have earned someone a swift lesson in respect. She could already feel her body instinctively shifting into a fighting stance, weight balanced, core tight, breathing controlled. One of Trent's friends snickered, a boy with a varsity jacket and a smirk that matched his leader's. Better listen to him. You don't want to start trouble on your first day. Jasmine's mind raced. She had promised her mom. New school, new start, no fighting. But this was exactly what she had dealt with before. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her head. Choose your battles wisely. Sometimes the strongest move is knowing when to walk away. A small voice inside her whispered that Trent wasn't worth it. Another voice reminded her that if she gave in now, this would be her life at Westfield High. The bus lurched to a stop, picking up more students. The momentary distraction gave Jasmine time to think. I said move, Trent repeated, his voice lower, the friendly facade slipping. Or do you need help understanding English? Jasmine took a deep breath. She had faced worse in the ring. Much worse. At least there, the rules were clear and the referee would step in if things got too rough. Here, the only rules were the ones Trent made up, and the bus driver had clearly decided his job didn't include refereeing social conflicts. Fine, Jasmine said finally, standing up slowly. At 5'6", she was shorter than Trent, but years of training had given her a presence that was hard to ignore. For just a moment, as she stood face to face with him, she saw a flicker of something in his eyes. Uncertainty? Surprise? Whatever it was, it disappeared quickly. Smart choice, Trent said, stepping back slightly to let her pass. As she moved past him, he stuck his foot out just enough to catch her ankle. Jasmine saw it coming. In the ring, she would have countered immediately. A simple sweep that would have put him on the floor. Instead, she deliberately stepped over his foot, making sure he knew she had seen his childish attempt. Oops, Trent said loudly. Guess you're more coordinated than you look. Walking down the aisle felt like the longest walk of Jasmine's life. Each step away from Trent was a battle against her instincts. In Chicago, no one would have expected her to take this kind of treatment. But here, no one knew what she was capable of. She found an empty seat near the back, sliding in next to a thin boy with glasses who looked terrified that she had chosen to sit with him. He scooted as far against the window as possible. I don't bite, Jasmine said quietly. But Trent does, the boy whispered, not making eye contact. And now he's noticed you. From her new seat, Jasmine could see Trent and his friends laughing, occasionally looking back at her. She forced herself to stare out the window instead, watching the unfamiliar town pass by. What Trent and his friends didn't notice was how Jasmine's eyes tracked every movement on the bus through the reflection in the window. How she noted which students seemed afraid and which ones seemed resigned. How she counted the number of Trent's close friends versus casual followers. She might be sitting at the back of the bus today, but Jasmine Williams wasn't defeated. She was observing, learning, planning. The bus pulled up to Westfield High, a sprawling brick building with a giant wildcat painted on the front. As students began filing off, Jasmine stayed seated, waiting until Trent and his crew had gone. First day's always the worst, the boy next to her offered unexpectedly. Just try to stay out of his way. Jasmine nodded her thanks, but inside she knew better. People like Trent didn't let you stay out of their way once they had targeted you. This was just the beginning. Jasmine spent her first 3 class periods trying to blend in, which wasn't easy when you're the new kid everyone was whispering about. That's the girl who talked back to Trent, she heard more than once as she walked the halls. Some looked at her with pity, others with newfound interest. By lunchtime, her strategy was clear: watch, learn, and stay under the radar. Not forever, just long enough to understand the playing field. Her grandfather had taught her that before any fight, know your opponent, know the terrain. The cafeteria was a maze of unspoken rules. Jasmine grabbed her tray and scanned the room, immediately spotting Trent holding court at a central table. His laugh carried across the room as he mimicked someone, probably her from this morning. His audience of followers chuckled on cue. "You can sit with us if you want." Jasmine turned to see a girl with a camera hanging around her neck. She had short hair dyed purple at the tips and a friendly, if cautious, smile. "I'm Lucia," the girl said. "I saw what happened on the bus." Jasmine followed Lucia to a table near the windows where a few other students sat. None of them looked like they belonged to any particular clique, just kids who'd found each other in the margins. "Guys, this is Jasmine," Lucia announced. "She's the one who didn't know about Trent's seat." A boy with glasses, the same one from the bus, gave a half wave. "I'm Tyler," he said, "chemistry club president and professional Trent avoider." The others introduced themselves too: Emmy from the school newspaper, Dian who ran track, and Raya who mostly sketched in her notebook during lunch. "So," Emmy leaned in, "what's your story?" "Nobody stands up to Trent, especially not on their first day." Jasmine shrugged, picking at her fries. "I didn't know I was supposed to be scared of him." "Well, you should be," Tyler said quietly. "His dad basically owns half the town and sits on the school board. Teachers look the other way when Trent does stuff because they're afraid of losing their jobs." "What kind of stuff?" Jasmine asked, though she could guess. They all exchanged glances. "Last month he made a freshman hand over his lunch money every day for 2 weeks," Dian offered. "Kid was too scared to tell anyone. He ruined my photography exhibit because I caught him cheating on a test," Lucia added, touching her camera protectively. "Knocked it over and claimed it was an accident." "And don't get me started on the racist stuff," Raya murmured, not looking up from her drawing. "My brother graduated last year, but he still doesn't talk about what Trent and his friends did to him." Jasmine listened, her appetite fading. It was always the same story in different settings, people with power using it to hurt others who couldn't fight back. "Why doesn't anyone stop him?" she finally asked. The table fell silent. "You must come from a very different place," Andy said eventually. "Here, that's just how it is." Jasmine thought about Chicago, about the neighborhoods where respect was earned and challenged daily, where she had learned to fight because sometimes words weren't enough. She had earned her place there. "It doesn't have to be," she said softly. The others exchanged skeptical glances but said nothing more. As lunch ended, Jasmine realized she'd made her first allies, even if they didn't know it yet. In her afternoon classes, she caught glimpses of Trent's reach. How teachers called on him first, despite his hand not being raised. How other students moved out of his way in the hallways. How even the principal nodded respectfully when passing him between periods. But she also noticed other things. The slight tremor in a teacher's voice when Trent interrupted her lesson. The way younger students hunched their shoulders when he approached. The exhausted resignation on the face of the janitor who cleaned up after Trent deliberately knocked over a trash can. After school, Jasmine headed to her locker, mentally counting the hours until she could get home and process everything. As she rounded the corner, she spotted Trent and 2 friends surrounding a small boy who clutched a calculator to his chest. "I told you yesterday I need help with my math homework," Trent was saying, voice dripping with fake friendliness. "And you're going to help me, right?" "But the test is tomorrow," the boy stammered. "If I do your homework, it's cheating." "No, it's tutoring," Trent corrected, placing a heavy hand on the boy's shoulder. "Very expensive tutoring that I'm paying for by not making your life miserable." Something snapped inside Jasmine. She'd been watching all day, learning the terrain as her grandfather advised. But some things couldn't wait. She closed her locker with a deliberate bang. The sound echoed down the corridor. All 4 boys turned to look. "Leave him alone," Jasmine said, her voice calm but carrying. Trent's eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed with interest. "Well, well," bus girls got more to say. Jasmine walked toward them, each step measured. She stopped a few feet away, close enough to be heard clearly but just outside arm's reach. A fighter's instinct. "He said no," she stated simply. Find someone else to cheat off of. The hallway, which had been bustling with after-school activity, grew quiet. Nearby students froze, watching the showdown with horrified fascination. You really don't know how things work here, do you? Trent's voice was dangerously soft. Maybe you need a proper welcome to Westfield High. As he took a step toward her, Jasmine made her decision. The back of the bus today. Standing her ground now. She had tried playing by the rules of this place, but some things were worth fighting for. And she knew exactly how to fight. The tension in the hallway was thick enough to cut with a knife. Students who had been rushing to catch their buses now slowed down, forming a loose circle around Jasmine and Trent. No one wanted to miss whatever was about to happen. You know what your problem is? Trent took another step toward Jasmine, closing the careful distance she had maintained. You don't understand respect. Jasmine didn't back up. She had faced down opponents twice Trent's size in Chicago's underground fighting circuit. But this wasn't the ring with its rules and referees. This was Westfield High, where Trent made the rules. I understand respect just fine, Jasmine replied, her voice steady. It's earned, not demanded. A few students exchanged glances. Nobody talked to Trent like that. The smaller boy with the calculator was still frozen in place, looking between Jasmine and Trent with wide, fearful eyes. Go, Jasmine told him without taking her eyes off Trent. You don't need to do his homework. The boy hesitated, then scurried away when Trent's attention was fully on Jasmine. You're really starting to annoy me, Trent said, his fake smile disappearing. First the bus, now this. I think you need to learn how things work around here. One of Trent's friends moved to block the hallway exit. The other pulled out his phone, clearly hoping to catch something worth posting online. Jasmine noticed Lucia appearing at the edge of the crowd, camera in hand. Their eyes met briefly, and Lucia gave an almost imperceptible nod. Let me explain how things are going to work from now on, Trent continued, voice rising so everyone could hear. You're going to apologize, right here, right now. Then maybe I'll forget about this little rebellion of yours. Students were watching with a mixture of fascination and dread. Some looked away, unable to watch another new kid get put in their place by Trent. Others leaned in, eager for the drama. And if I don't? Jasmine asked, though she already knew the answer. Trent's smile returned, colder than before. Then life gets very difficult for you at Westfield. No one will talk to you. Teachers will lose your assignments. You'll eat lunch alone every day. He leaned closer. And that's just the beginning. Jasmine took a slow, deep breath. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her head. Fighting should always be the last resort. But when it is the only option left, do not hesitate. I'm not going to apologize, she said clearly, each word deliberate. Not for taking a seat on the bus, not for helping someone you were bullying. Wrong answer. Trent's face hardened. He nodded to his friends. Make sure nobody interrupts our little chat. The hallway had emptied except for Trent's crew, a handful of curious onlookers, and Lucia with her camera discreetly recording from behind a row of lockers. Trent moved closer, using his height to tower over Jasmine. Last chance. Apologize and promise to stay out of my way. Jasmine remained still, but something changed in her posture. It was subtle, the slight shift in her weight to the balls of her feet. The almost imperceptible lowering of her center of gravity, the relaxed readiness in her hands. Anyone trained in fighting would have recognized the stance immediately. I've given you every chance to walk away, she said quietly, only for him to hear. Trent laughed. You're giving me chances. Do you have any idea who I am in this school? I know exactly who you are, Jasmine replied. I've seen dozens just like you in Chicago. Bullies who think fear is the same as respect. Something dangerous flashed in Trent's eyes. His pride couldn't handle being talked to this way, especially not in front of an audience. You know what? I'm done talking. He reached out suddenly, grabbing for Jasmine's arm. What happened next was so fast that those watching would later disagree on the exact sequence of events. Trent's hand never reached its target. Instead, his wrist was caught in a grip that looked casual but felt like steel. His momentum suddenly stopped, throwing him off balance. Don't touch me, Jasmine said, her voice unchanged, but her eyes now focused with an intensity that made Trent blink. He tried to pull his arm back, but the grip held firm. For the first time, a flicker of confusion crossed his face. "Let go," he demanded, voice rising slightly. "Walk away," Jasmine countered. "Promise to leave that kid alone, and we're done here." Trent's face flushed red. Being challenged by the new girl was bad enough. Being given ultimatums in front of his friends and other students was unthinkable. With his free hand, he swung at Jasmine's face. The punch never landed. In one fluid motion that seemed impossibly fast, Jasmine released his wrist, stepped slightly to the side, and redirected his swing with the lightest touch to his passing arm. Trent's own momentum carried him forward into the lockers with a loud crash. The hallway went deadly silent. Trent straightened up slowly, disbelief and rage fighting for dominance on his face. Nobody had ever made him look foolish like this. Nobody. "You're dead," he snarled, all pretense of civility gone. He nodded to his friends. "All of you. Get her." The crowd of students backed up, some heading for the exits, others pressing against the walls. No one wanted to get involved, but no one wanted to miss what was happening either. As Trent and his two friends closed in from different angles, Jasmine didn't look afraid. She looked focused, ready. The fight was about to begin, and only Jasmine knew it was already over. Time seemed to slow down in the school hallway. Trent and his two friends spread out, trying to surround Jasmine. Their faces showed a mix of anger and confidence. 3 against 1 seemed like easy odds, especially when that one was a girl shorter than all of them. "Hold her arms," Trent ordered his friends as they closed in. "I want to handle this personally." The students watching from a safe distance were torn between fear and fascination. Some had their phones out, recording what they thought would be another sad chapter in Westfield High's long history of unchecked bullying. Jasmine remained perfectly still, her breathing calm and even. As the first boy, a stocky kid with a varsity jacket, lunged for her right arm, something changed in her demeanor. It was like watching a switch flip. She pivoted slightly, so smoothly it barely looked like movement at all. The boy's grasping hands caught nothing but air as Jasmine sidestepped, leaving her foot in his path. His own momentum sent him stumbling forward, off balance and confused. "What there?" he started to say, but never finished. Jasmine's hand found his wrist, guiding rather than grabbing, using his own forward motion to send him spinning past her. He crashed into a row of lockers with a loud bang that echoed through the hall. The second boy hesitated for just a second, a fatal mistake in any fight. Jasmine was already moving, closing the distance between them before he could react. As he threw a wild punch, she ducked under it effortlessly. Rising up inside his guard, she used the heel of her hand to push against his shoulder while sweeping his foot. The combination sent him sprawling backward onto the floor. All of this happened in less than 5 seconds. Neither boy was hurt badly, just dazed and thoroughly confused about how they'd ended up where they were. The hallway had gone completely silent. Even the students who had been recording lowered their phones in shock, not believing what they were seeing. Trent stood frozen, his face a mixture of disbelief and rage. "What? How did you?" Jasmine turned to face him, her stance relaxed but balanced. "Last chance to walk away," she offered quietly. Something snapped in Trent. Maybe it was the humiliation of watching his friends taken down so easily. Maybe it was the calm in Jasmine's voice that infuriated him most. Whatever it was, he charged at her with a roar, arms outstretched as if he could simply overpower her with his size and fury. Jasmine waited until the last possible moment. Then, with a grace that seemed impossible in the cramped school hallway, she pivoted her body just enough for Trent to miss her completely. As he stumbled past, she helped his momentum with a light push to his back, sending him face first into the wall. Trent bounced off the wall and spun around, his nose bleeding slightly. The sight of his own blood on his fingers seemed to drive him into an even deeper rage. He charged again, this time throwing a wild haymaker aimed at Jasmine's head. With almost casual ease, Jasmine caught his arm mid-swing. Using his own momentum and weight against him, she redirected his energy, turning his body through the air. For a brief moment, Trent was actually airborne before landing hard on his back, the impact knocking the wind out of him. The entire encounter had lasted less than 30 seconds, and Jasmine hadn't thrown a single punch. She'd barely even broken a sweat. From behind a row of lockers, Lucia's camera caught everything. The way Jasmine had efficiently neutralized 3 opponents without causing any serious injuries. The way she had used their own aggression against them. the incredible control she'd shown throughout. Jasmine looked down at Trent, who was still trying to catch his breath on the floor. "Fighting isn't about being bigger or stronger," she said, her voice carrying in the silent hallway. "It's about discipline and respect for yourself and others." She stepped back, giving him space. "I learned that the hard way in Chicago. Maybe you can learn it here." Trent's friends had picked themselves up and were backing away, wanting no more part of this fight. They'd expected an easy win against a new girl. What they'd gotten instead was a humbling lesson. "Who are you?" Trent managed to ask between gasps, still lying on his back. "Just someone who's tired of bullies," Jasmine replied simply. The small crowd of students who had witnessed the fight were dead silent, processing what they'd just seen. Then someone in the back started to clap slowly. Others joined in, the applause spreading until it filled the hallway. For years, they had watched Trent and his crew terrorize anyone they pleased. They had looked away, afraid to be the next target. Now, in less than a minute, the seemingly untouchable king of Westfield High had been dethroned by the new girl everyone had pitied this morning. Tyler pushed his way through the crowd, his eyes wide behind his glasses. "That was... How did you... Where did you learn to fight like that?" Jasmine shrugged, suddenly self-conscious as the attention shifted from Trent to her. "My grandfather taught me Muay Thai when I was 7. I've been training ever since." "Training for what?" someone asked. "Competitions, mostly," she admitted. "Underground stuff back in Chicago." Lucia appeared with her camera, a huge grin on her face. "I got it all," she whispered to Jasmine. "Every second." Trent finally got to his feet, his face a mask of humiliation and rage. "This isn't over," he growled, though he kept his distance now. "My father will hear about this. You just made the biggest mistake of your life." Jasmine met his gaze calmly. "The mistake was thinking you could push people around forever without consequences." As Trent limped away, followed by his equally shaken friends, the other students crowded around Jasmine, bombarding her with questions and congratulations. Years of tension had been released in those few moments, and the energy in the hallway was electric. But Jasmine noticed something else happening too. Students who had been silent witnesses for years were now talking about other incidents, other times Trent had bullied them or their friends. It was as if a dam had broken, letting out years of pent-up stories and frustrations. "You have no idea what you just did," Tyler told her with a strange mix of admiration and worry. "No one stands up to Trent Wilson. No one." "Someone should have," Jasmine replied simply. "A long time ago." As the crowd around her grew, Jasmine realized that everything had changed. Her plan for a quiet, fresh start at Westfield High had just gone out the window. For better or worse, everyone knew exactly who she was now. Trent's friends had picked themselves up and were backing away, wanting no more part of this fight. They'd expected an easy win against a new girl. What they'd gotten instead was a humbling lesson. "Who are you?" Trent managed to ask between gasps, still lying on his back. "Just someone who's tired of bullies," Jasmine replied simply. The small crowd of students who had witnessed the fight were dead silent, processing what they'd just seen. Then someone in the back started to clap slowly. Others joined in, the applause spreading until it filled the hallway. For years, they had watched Trent and his crew terrorize anyone they pleased. They had looked away, afraid to be the next target. Now, in less than a minute, the seemingly untouchable king of Westfield High had been dethroned by the new girl everyone had pitied this morning. Tyler pushed his way through the crowd, his eyes wide behind his glasses. "That was... How did you... Where did you learn to fight like that?" Jasmine shrugged, suddenly self-conscious as the attention shifted from Trent to her. "My grandfather taught me Muay Thai when I was 7. I've been training ever since." "Training for what?" someone asked. "Competitions, mostly," she admitted. "Underground stuff back in Chicago." Lucia appeared with her camera, a huge grin on her face. "I got it all," she whispered to Jasmine. "Every second." Trent finally got to his feet, his face a mask of humiliation and rage. "This isn't over," he growled, though he kept his distance now. "My father will hear about this. You just made the biggest mistake of your life." Jasmine met his gaze calmly. "The mistake was thinking you could push people around forever without consequences." As Trent limped away, followed by his equally shaken friends, the other students crowded around Jasmine, bombarding her with questions and congratulations. Years of tension had been released in those few moments, and the energy in the hallway was electric. But Jasmine noticed something else happening too. Students who had been silent witnesses for years were now talking about other incidents, other times Trent had bullied them or their friends. It was as if a dam had broken, letting out years of pent-up stories and frustrations. "You have no idea what you just did," Tyler told her with a strange mix of admiration and worry. "No one stands up to Trent Wilson. No one." "Someone should have," Jasmine replied simply. "A long time ago." As the crowd around her grew, Jasmine realized that everything had changed. Her plan for a quiet, fresh start at Westfield High had just gone out the window. For better or worse, everyone knew exactly who she was now. By the next morning, everyone at Westfield High had seen the video. Lucia's footage had spread from phone to phone overnight, shared in group chats and social media accounts with messages like, "You won't believe this," and "New girl is a fighter." Jasmine felt the stares as soon as she stepped off the bus. Some students moved out of her way with newfound respect. Others approached with smiles and introductions, as if they'd been friends all along. It was jarring how quickly everything had changed. "There she is." Tyler appeared at her side, looking both excited and nervous. "You're basically famous now. Lucia's video has over 2,000 views." Jasmine winced. "My mom's going to kill me. I promised her no fighting at the new school." "But you didn't start it," Tyler protested. "Everyone saw that. Trent and his goons came after you." Before Jasmine could respond, the school's PA system crackled to life. "Jasmine Williams to the principal's office. Immediately." The hallway fell silent, all eyes turning to her. Someone patted her shoulder supportively as she made her way through the crowd. Outside Principal Chen's office, Jasmine found her mother already waiting, her face a mix of worry and disappointment. "What happened to keeping a low profile?" she asked quietly. "Mom, I can explain." The office door swung open before she could finish. Inside sat Principal Chen behind his desk, looking tired and uncomfortable. Beside him stood a tall man in an expensive suit. The resemblance to Trent was unmistakable. And there was Trent himself, slumped in a chair with a bandage on his nose and a smug look that suggested he thought he'd already won. "Come in, Ms. Williams," Principal Chen said, his voice carefully neutral. "You too, Mrs. Williams." As they entered, Jasmine noticed someone else sitting quietly in the corner, Lucia, clutching her camera bag, looking terrified. "This is Mr. Wilson, Trent's father and a member of our school board," Principal Chen explained, though Jasmine had already guessed as much. "He's here concerning yesterday's incident." Mr. Wilson didn't bother with pleasantries. "My son was violently assaulted on school property yesterday," he said, his voice cold and practiced like a lawyer's. "I've reviewed the medical report. Bruised ribs, mild concussion, not to mention the emotional trauma." He placed a folder on the principal's desk. "I'm considering legal action against the school for failing to provide a safe environment, but I'm willing to drop that if this student is expelled immediately." Jasmine's mother straightened her back. "My daughter has never been in trouble before. And from what I've heard, your son was the aggressor." "That's not true." Trent jumped in, his voice cracking slightly. "She came out of nowhere and attacked me." "Ask anyone." "Actually," Lucia spoke up, her voice small but determined, "I have the whole thing on video, from the beginning." All heads turned to her. Mr. Wilson's expression darkened. "Videos can be edited, young lady. And filming on school property without permission is against regulations." "Not when it's for the school newspaper," Lucia replied, gaining confidence. "I'm a staff photographer. And I didn't just record yesterday. I've been documenting Trent's behavior for weeks." Principal Chen looked surprised. "What do you mean, Ms. Rivera?" Lucia pulled out her camera. "I have videos of Trent bullying 7 different students in the past month alone, including what happened yesterday when he tried to force Raj to do his math homework. That's what started everything with Jasmine." "This is ridiculous," Mr. Wilson scoffed. "My son is a model student." "With all due respect, sir, he's not," came a new voice from the doorway. They'd all turned to see Tyler standing there, along with 5 other students. The boy with the calculator, Raj, was among them, looking nervous but determined. "What is this?" Principal Chen asked, clearly flustered by the growing crowd in his office. "These are witnesses," Tyler explained. "We've all been bullied by Trent, some of us for years. We were too scared to say anything before because," his eyes flicked to Mr. Wilson, "because we thought no one would believe us over a Wilson." "This is preposterous," Mr. Wilson sputtered. "Robert, you can't seriously entertain this ambush." Principal Chen looked trapped between his duty and his fear of the powerful Wilson family. Jasmine could see him weighing his options, torn between doing what was right and doing what was safe. "May I see the videos?" he finally asked Lucia. Mr. Wilson started to object, but Principal Chen raised his hand. "I need to see all the evidence before making any decision." For the next 15 minutes, the office was silent except for the sound from Lucia's camera. They watched as Trent forced younger students to give him money, mocked others for their appearance, and made racist comments to several students of color. The final clip showed his confrontation with Jasmine, making it perfectly clear that Trent had been the aggressor. When the videos ended, Principal Chen removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. "Mr. Wilson, in light of this evidence, I cannot and will not expel Ms. Williams. In fact, according to our zero-tolerance policy on bullying, it's Trent who should be facing serious consequences." "You can't be serious," Mr. Wilson said, his voice dangerously quiet. "Do you know how much my family donates to this school each year?" "Are you threatening me, Jeffrey?" Principal Chen asked, something changing in his demeanor. "Because that would be highly inappropriate." "It's not a threat. It's a reality check." Mr. Wilson stood up. "You're making a mistake." "No, sir," Principal Chen replied, standing as well. "My mistake was allowing this behavior to continue unchecked for so long. Trent will be suspended for 2 weeks, and he'll be required to attend counseling sessions before returning. And if there are any further incidents, the consequences will be more severe." Trent jumped to his feet. "This is complete bull." "Trent," his father cut him off. "That's enough." He turned to Principal Chen. "This isn't over." Then to Jasmine. "And you should watch your back, young lady." Jasmine met his gaze calmly. "Is that a threat, Mr. Wilson? Because that would be highly inappropriate." Using his own words against him left Mr. Wilson speechless. With a final glare, he grabbed Trent's arm and stormed out of the office. The remaining students let out a collective breath they hadn't realized they were holding. Principal Chen looked at them all, a mix of pride and wariness on his face. "I owe you all an apology," he said quietly. "I should have done more to stop this long ago." As they filed out of the office, Jasmine felt a strange mix of emotions: relief that she wasn't being expelled, pride that she had stood up for what was right, but also concern about the powerful enemy she had just made. "You okay?" her mother asked, squeezing her hand. Jasmine nodded slowly. "Yeah, but I don't think this is over." "It's not," Tyler agreed, falling into step beside them. "But for the first time, it feels like something might actually change around here." As they walked through the hallway, other students smiled and nodded at Jasmine. Word of what had happened in the principal's office was already spreading. The battle had been won, but the war for Westfield High was just beginning. 3 weeks passed, and Westfield High was a different place. The hallways felt lighter somehow, as if everyone could finally breathe easier. Trent had returned from his suspension 2 days ago, noticeably quieter and keeping to himself. His group of followers had mostly scattered during his absence, finding other social circles or simply enjoying their newfound freedom. Jasmine closed her locker and turned to find Lucia approaching with her ever-present camera. "Ready for today?" Lucia asked, excitement evident in her voice. "I think so," Jasmine replied, though her stomach was in knots. "I've never taught anything before." "You'll be amazing," Lucia assured her. Half the school signed up. After the incident with Trent, Principal Chen had approached Jasmine with an unusual request, which she considered teaching a self-defense workshop for interested students. At first, Jasmine had refused, worried it would only cement her reputation as the fighter. But her mother had surprised her by supporting the idea. "Maybe this is why we came here," her mom had said. "Not to run from who you are, but to find a better way to use your skills." So here she was, heading to the gym where 30 students were waiting to learn basic self-defense from the girl who had taken down Westfield High's biggest bully. "There she is." Tyler waved from where he was setting up mats on the floor. He had appointed himself Jasmine's unofficial assistant, helping organize the workshop with an enthusiasm that made her smile. Students were already filing in, a mix of girls and boys from all grades. Jasmine was pleased to see Raj among them, no longer hunching his shoulders as if trying to disappear. "All right, everyone," Jasmine called out once they had all settled on the mats. "I'm not here to teach you how to fight. I'm here to teach you how to protect yourselves." She demonstrated basic stances, showing how to maintain balance and create distance from an attacker. The students mirrored her movements, some awkwardly at first, but with growing confidence as the hour progressed. "Remember," Jasmine explained as they practiced simple wrist releases, "the goal isn't to hurt someone else. It's to keep yourself safe. Sometimes that means walking away. Sometimes it means standing your ground." From the corner of the gym, Principal Chen watched with approval. He had changed too in the past weeks. The videos Lucia had collected had forced him to confront his own role in allowing bullying to flourish at Westfield. Now he was on a mission to transform the school culture, starting with supporting initiatives like this. After the workshop, as students chatted excitedly about what they'd learned, Tyler approached Jasmine with a grin. "You're not going to believe this," he said, lowering his voice. "Trent just signed up for next week's session." Jasmine blinked in surprise. "You're kidding." "Nope. His counselor suggested it might help him with his anger issues or something." Jasmine wasn't sure how to feel about that. The idea of teaching her former bully the very skills she had used against him was strange, to say the least. As if summoned by their conversation, Trent himself appeared at the gym entrance. The room quieted immediately, everyone watching to see what would happen. He looked different somehow, less arrogant, more uncertain. The bandage was gone from his nose, but his pride still seemed wounded. He approached Jasmine slowly, stopping a respectful distance away. "Can I talk to you?" he asked, his voice lacking its usual edge. Jasmine nodded, and they stepped aside, while the others pretended not to watch. "I signed up for next week," Trent said, hands shoved in his pockets. "If that's a problem, I can cancel." "It's not a problem," Jasmine replied cautiously. "Everyone's welcome." Trent nodded, staring at the floor. "My dad's pretty mad. He pulled his donation to the school, and he's not speaking to me much either." Jasmine said nothing, waiting. "The counselor says I've been acting out because of pressure from him," Trent continued. "Always having to be the best, the strongest, the one in charge. I don't know if that's true, but," he trailed off, then looked up at her. "I'm sorry. For what I said on the bus. For everything." It wasn't a perfect apology, but Jasmine could see it cost him something to make it. "Thank you," she said simply. An awkward silence stretched between them. "Maybe you could show me that move someday," Trent said finally. "The one you used when?" He gestured vaguely. "You know." Jasmine couldn't help but smile a little. "Come next week. We'll be covering basics." Trent nodded and walked away. Jasmine watched him go, thoughtful. People could change. Sometimes they just needed the right push.